You're listening to Kayak Flyer with your host, Sean. Tonight, we're brought to you by Tennessee Trailers, OutdoorAdventureTrailers.com. Simply the best way to get your kayak to and from the water. Bajuco Flats Fly Co. Simply the best custom-made fly rods on the market, always built to order just the way you want it. Find Bajuco Flats Fly Co. on Instagram and Facebook. StoneflyNets.com, made 100% in the great state of Arkansas with your choice of woods or burls. Stonefly nets can even be customized for that favorite fisher person in your life. Check out StoneflyNets.com for details. CutthroatFurledLeaders.com, the only leaders that I fish with. Cutthroat Furled Leaders are excellent for saltwater, freshwater, trout, bass, you name it, you can catch it with a Cutthroat Furled Leader. Head to CutthroatFurledLeaders.com, promo code Kayak to save 15%.
Uh-oh, here we go.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Guys, this is Kayak Flyer. I'm Sean. I'm here with Adam. You can see Adam's got his logo, Luttrell's Fly Shop, underneath his name up there. If you're watching the video, we got Ben Tutt here with us from Stupid Simple Fly Tying. Ben doesn't give us a logo to put up. He doesn't want to be associated with the show. But like I said, I got a lot of problems with you people. It has been snowing. It has been nasty. And I have tied so many size 14 flies that
First off, what does the weather have to do with us? We have no control of that.
That's right.
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with you directly. It has to do with the fact that you guys have been making me start tying size 14 flies.
I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you that you could do that.
Sean, I've seen some of the stuff you're tying. I liked it. It started, you were like, all right, let's start with like a 10. And then we're going into a 12, and then we're going 14. You send me this, you're like, look at this thing.
Yeah,
you're slowly getting there. That's the way to go about it.
Let's talk about Sean's size 1/0 Frenchie. Okay, when he started off tying a Frenchie, it was in a 1/0. I think it's a B10S, and then now he's worked it down to about a 10.
Yep.
So we're getting there.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. It's Man, on my Instagram, I've been putting up these smaller photos on the smaller flies on Instagram, and people are starting to like the page.
There you go.
They're like, it's not a streamer.
Instagram famous right there, buddy.
Yeah, but one thing I've noticed, and this is what I got a problem with, Stupid Simple. It's not always Stupid Simple anymore. I was looking at some of those flies, and I'm like, dang!
I know.
And
it's just part of the gist. We get so many different walks of life in that group of, right now we're seeing a lot of new fly tires, which is really cool. We're starting to see some of those guys post up. You gotta figure that a lot of these guys ended up getting their vices, their materials all at Christmas.
Right.
And now they're starting to get some confidence in posting. And honestly, I don't care if it's your first fly ever. I've seen some really darling first flies,
Yeah.
like you could see that it's kind of clicking with people on how to do something.
Yeah.
So I don't care. I mean, post what you want as long as it's clean and you put the recipe down.
Yeah. Well, you get what, close to 30,000 members in a social media group. You're gonna start having all walks of life, and especially if we're talking about fly tying. I mean, you all start somewhere, and you may be only into it for your first 3 days. You may be on year 45. Yeah. So you're the level of tying think about it. If you've been tying for 45 years, probably tying a zebra midge is just not that thrilling right now. But if you're on day 3, you're saying, how do I taper the body, and how the hell do I space the wiring? I don't get it.
How do I make it?
There's two different things, right?
I don't get it. Yeah.
Been tying for 20 years. You've never tied below a size 8.
But we all know our limitations, right?
Hey, I was looking online, not just at Stupid Simple on Facebook, but our buddy Tim Camus, friend of the show, of Trout and Feather YouTube channel. Great guy. He's coming back on the show when his new book drops.
Cool.
But I was looking at a pheasant tail, and he's got like this really nice pheasant tail. And then I scroll down, he's like the 2-minute pheasant tail. And it's no wings, You tie in the pheasant tail, you wrap it forward, you tie it off, you wrap it back, you throw peacock herl, you wrap it back over, hit it with some UV, and you're done. And I'm sitting there going, why have I been fighting to get these wings the right size off the size of this 14 hook when I knew
Sean,
it was this easy?
I tie a pheasant tail that's very easy. I don't do the wings. What I'll do is I'll tie the 3 pieces of pheasant tail, build the body, I actually use dubbing instead of peacock herl. So I twist a little bit of dubbing on there. I'll tie in a piece of flash.
Yep.
So I'll wrap the dubbing and then pull that flash back over it, tie it in, you're done.
Yeah. That's exactly how I tie mine. That's exactly it.
Is one of the most deadliest flies that I have taken to Wisconsin, all the way down to southern Missouri. Yeah. It's one of my favorites to pull along down at the bottom. Where I'll put a heavy fly up front and then put that little pheasant tail and dredge those bottoms.
Yep. I don't know if I sent the photo to you, but I was trying to tie a copper john, and none of the wraps were right. And I looked in my box, and I've got copper tinsel.
Yeah.
I just wrapped that body with copper tinsel. It looks great. You know.
It's a Sean John.
Yeah.
It's Sean John. That's right.
It's the trailer park John is what it is. But, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't weigh as much because it doesn't have that copper wire, but it looks fine. It looks like it'll fish.
And it'll still get down. Yeah.
And it'll be flashy enough to get some attention, and that's all you need it for.
Yeah.
I mean, trout, from what I understand, and there's all these different theories. And the one I kind of hang my hat on to the most is they're looking for a silhouette most of the time. They're looking for a wing silhouette. They're looking for something that breaks that water surface, or they're looking for some type of flash that gets their attention. And then they'll investigate a little bit. If they feel like that's something they're going to eat, they're going to eat it.
Yeah. I'm glad you say that. And it's kind of loops it back to the comment about, whether you're been tying for 3 days or 45 years. I think one of the best compliments somebody can give to a fly when you get the confidence up to post it, right? Like if you're looking for constructive feedback, you just want to showcase something. I'll see comments. The one that I see repeated the most, which I think is probably the most complimentary, is "That'll fish."
Yeah,
that's all you need to know.
Yep, that'll fish, or it looks buggy.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's another one that if you hear that, if someone says that, get it wet. Fish it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's for trout. I don't care if it's bluegill. I don't care if it's bass. If it's buggy enough, they're gonna eat it.
Yeah.
I had a few beers today. Not gonna lie.
That took a sharp turn.
And I was sitting there and tying flies, and I reached for my tinsel, and I wound up having the tinsel from the Rainbow Warrior just already cut. Well, I'm going to use that. So I just wrapped up my pheasant tail just like I would and used that. And tied the peacock herl, and it looks good. Cool. Well, and again, it's one of these things where I think we get married to a materials list of you've got to have CDC, or you've got to have Coq de Leon, or you've got to have this or that. I'm going to tell you what, throwing that Fly Tires Dungeon Northern Lights, using that instead of peacock herl, that's a winner.
Yeah.
Using the mayfly tails. Artificial mayfly tails. I don't know what those things are made out of, but man, you want to put a short tail real quick on something that you're not going to use to wrap the body up and build with. Those things are amazing. And I'm sitting there going, I've got this stuff. I could go to Dooley's Fly Shop, say 15% with promo code, or Dooley's Fly Fishing, say 15% with promo code Kayak. I could go there and order $150 more stuff. Or I can look at what's on my bench and say, I can make that work.
Yeah.
And
you could do either or. Go ahead and order the stuff. Tie what you've got, play with it, and if you like it, guess what? You've got more material coming, but you got a fly that you can use.
Yeah. And that's that's one of the things. I got the Fly Medic kit this last time, which was that Rainbow Warrior. And doing that gave me confidence to go and try some things a little bit harder on that size 14.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, some of the best things you can do, I mean, we all have to have the confidence to know how to tie a specific pattern in just its general type of fly, right? Yep. Once you've got that down, and then you want, maybe you're tired of tying it that particular way. Well, that's where then the creative juices can kind of kick in, and you can start substituting certain things. Or if you want to add a wing casing to something that maybe wouldn't traditionally be there, this is kind of where you can have a lot of fun with it. Yep. You can start mixing and matching all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah, and colors, change up colors.
Yeah,
colors, change up colors.
Yeah.
I took a pink squirrel and put a white collar on it, and I slay it down there in southern Missouri. Do that up north, they won't touch it. It's got to be pink. Change up the colors, man.
Yeah.
Try something different. Think outside the box a little bit from time to time. I'm a big advocate for sharing your recipe and everything, but don't be afraid to change some things up. I showed you a fly that I don't even think has a name to it. It kind of rolled off the tongue where it's I'm too lazy to get from the bench to my fly tying materials. Fly. And literally it was just what I had on the desk, and it was peacock herl, some grizzly hackle, some OK grizzly hackle, and some crystal flash.
Yep.
And I put something together, and I'm like, bluegill are gonna tear that thing up.
Yeah, it looks like a crackleback.
It does. It does.
It looks like a crackleback. It looks like, I called it a what did I say? It was a crackleback / bugger /
gnat
thing. Yeah.
Gnat
thing. But I'm just like, bluegill are going to tear it up when it comes to spring.
I think trout will too. I honestly do. And that's what, I jokingly say I got problems with you people, but that's just it. Is we always sit here and we look at these recipes and we think they're written in stone. But it was a guy who just was sitting at his bench and said, I'm going to try this. Okay, a Copper John works. What if I use the body with, rainbow tinsel and I throw some, rainbow scud dubbing on the end of it with a pink, or silver head?
Yeah.
It becomes Frankenfly, and it works, right?
And it works.
Yeah, and then you can't type in Rainbow Warrior without getting 15 different people's variation on it that have, 1,000 views.
Yeah. And when I go and search, that's the other thing, is when I go and search for flies, like I'll Google search panfish flies, and then I'll start looking through the images and going, what can I tie? What do I feel like tying? What do I got the materials to tie? And then I'll sit there and look. I'm like, I think I've got almost everything, but I'm going to have to substitute.
Right.
And there's so many, where I'm getting at though is there's so many variations of one fly. And as long as you put variant on it, then you're okay.
Right.
The fishing gods are gonna, be like, okay, you're all right. We're not gonna say anything.
Scuds are a great example of that. I've been tying a bunch of scuds lately because I've got the hooks and I've got the time. And, I'm just wrapping them with simply scud dubbing from Fly Tier's Dungeon.
Yeah.
And using his bug back on them. And I'm having to cut it down the middle. And I'm cranking out great looking scuds with a little bit of gold wire that my daughter had picked up from Hobby Lobby.
Right.
Yeah. You're stealing her craft supplies?
Sometimes. But it works great and it makes a good looking scud, but you're not going to find that recipe online, when you look it up with those ingredients,
And I think that's the one thing I think people, when they start growing and learning about materials, part of the fun for me is the question of looking at a fly and going, what did they use? And try to figure that out too. Mm-hmm. That's the fun part. Once you start getting that knowledge and you start looking at going, or what can I substitute to make the same thing?
Yeah.
When you go to the fly shop and you stop buying flies to fish,
yeah,
you buy them to take home and figure out how they're made.
Yeah. I'll openly admit, I don't have a fly shop. So I've got Bass Pro. They've got a little fly shop here. And I'll look through their bins and I'm like, ooh, that's kind of interesting. Screen, take a picture of it, take it home, look at it. How can I replicate this fly?
Yeah.
So
I got my wife was in Colorado back in October, and she swung by a Golden Fly shop and picked up a few things that I got, and she ended up giving me for Christmas. And one of them was just a variety of different flies, and one of them was I don't really know what it is. It was like a stonefly nymph variation. It had an orange bead, rubber legs, some rubber middle to it for the abdomen, and I fished that in November, and I could not catch it. I mean, I could not keep the fish off it, and so I brought it back home, and that thing held up really well. I caught a ton of fish on it. You wouldn't even know it was in the water.
Yeah.
Start looking at it at the desk, and to the point of this conversation, I'm thinking, all right, how many orange beads? All right, I can do like a charcoal matte bead. That's fine, whatever. And then going through and just looking at the fly, I'm like, man, I don't really want to tear this thing apart. It was so good, but the only way I'm going to know what really this thing is made up of is if I dissect it, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, that I think when you start to tie, that's really where you get to at a certain point where you're like, do I fish it or do I cut it apart and try to rebuild it? Do I look to see what there is? And Stupid Simple Fly Tying, Ben Tutt here on the show, Facebook group, Stupid Simple Fly Tying, a huge group. But that's sort of what you guys are dedicated to. Everybody posts a photo and a recipe. And I don't know how many times in the last couple of weeks I've seen, I'm new to fly tying. I'm new to fly tying. What can I use with this? What can I use with that? And everybody's very polite, and if not, they get banned.
Yep.
Sean, Ben, you police that site very well. You don't put up with
we put Sean out on the boot a couple of times, and he comes crawling back, and we put him out on the boot again, and comes crawling back.
He just changes the way he spells his name each time. He's like, it's like a disguise, right? They'll never know it's me.
Yeah.
It's not me. Oh, it's Sean again.
It's Sean with an S-E-A-N. All right.
Oh. But I mean, it's a great group, and I know, Adam, you've got your fly shop that you do some custom flies for folks. You've tied some flies for me that I bought, love them to death, especially when you're doing like the size 20 that I'm just so afraid. I'm so afraid to jump to an 18. But there's streamers, out there that people can get and look at. I know, Adam, I sent you some stuff the other day, and one of my flies, and the fly you tied looked better than the one I tied, and you did some variations to it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, well, appreciate that, but there's no way it's better than yours. But to your point, you're tying at a size 14. I picked up those 1/0 hooks, and I'm sitting here thinking, do I have enough material? This thing's gigantic. I don't even know where to begin. So I set your fly up like over here, and I just studied it, right? Like I didn't tear it apart, but I just look at it. I'm like, okay, like I get it. Like a fish. I'm imitating a fish. How hard can it be?
You're not imitating a fly. It's a fish.
It's totally different, but it worked great because I used yours as kind of the template, and I substitute different materials that I already had, but that Congo hair and the bait fish from Fly Tier's Dungeon, man, you're not kidding. Like, that's the first time I tied up anything with that material, and you've been talking about it to me for like 2 years. You're not wrong. I mean, it is so easy to tie with.
That Congo hair has to be like his top seller.
It has to.
That's all I hear about is his Congo hair.
It was amazing. It tied up beautifully, and it shapes out really well. It fills in. I could not be happier with it.
And whenever you go to tie the fly, take the amount you think you're going to need, and reduce that by half.
Yeah.
And then probably reduce it again by half.
Yeah.
Because
not gonna lie, my first bait fish is pretty chunky. It's got a belly to it.
Don't be fat shaming the bait fish on my show, Adam. Oh yeah, it was a real creek chub, huh?
Hey yo!
But ching, we'll have to add that in there.
Oh man.
So no, I mean it's really wild, and you've been starting to want to tie some musky flies, Ben. What have you been doing with that?
So I've been working on my musky flies. Gunner out there has done some amazing things with these new Arex hooks that come out, and I've been playing with those. And more recently, I've been playing actually with panfish flies.
Okay.
Doing a lot of those right now. I think I'm going to dedicate myself a little bit more. We were talking about this earlier that, with the pandemic, I had a few things in life that just came up that I couldn't go out and fish last year. I feel like I was cheated. I mean, I really couldn't go fishing until July. So I think this year I'm trying to just kind of knuckle down, stay on my home waters, go for those panfish, go for those crappie, get that kayak out, get it wet, actually have a full year with the kayak. Last year was going to be my first full year with a kayak, and it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm really got the fishing bug right now. We're looking at 40-degree temps. I'm sure you guys are going to start seeing a warm up here soon.
Well, it could snow on Thursday.
We're supposed to get rain snow mix tonight, but we're still looking at highs of near the 40s.
Yeah, so we're 50s and 60s the next 2 days, and then it tanks. So I've got Monday and Tuesday to look forward to.
It's warmer right now outside, and we're recording this at 8:00 at night. It's warmer right now outside than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
It was so bitterly cold, and yesterday was warm. It actually got to 34.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately up here, I still have hard water. I still have ice on the lakes. So we've got to wait for that to thaw out. Everybody's like, oh, why don't you go ice fishing? I'm like, I don't trust the ice.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's still open water in that lake, but, around the edges, it's all frozen over. Yeah. They're like, oh, we go fishing on 2 inches of ice. I'm like, nope.
They obviously
I'm not that brand of crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You got to really hate your wife to go ice fishing.
Honestly, I went ice fishing when I lived up in Wisconsin or Minnesota. We have Jess has a family member in Wisconsin. He had the whole ice shack and everything, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of drinking, a lot of fun. It's maybe 10 degrees outside, but inside the shanty, it's 80.
Yeah.
We're running those Mr. Buddy heaters, and we start taking the coat, the Carhartts off, and taking our furry hats off, and we just sit there, stare at a hole, and shoot BS and drink beers and have a good time. I'm glad I got to experience that in my lifetime.
I know a woman who has a trailer, like a camper trailer.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen these. Yeah.
And her husband modified it and has holes cut in the floor. Yeah. And so they go out there. They've got satellite TV. They've got a generator, and they just park this thing and then auger right through that hole in the floor, and they're right there.
They're right there.
You know.
There's up there. It was really fun. They would come out with a coffee table book of ice shanties from the previous year. And so this photographer goes out and takes pictures of all these different shanties and how these guys have put them together. And you've got anything from a guy with kind of an outhouse setup that he built out of 2x4s and a bucket just to block the wind, to this guy that's laying in this, what they call ice castles, that have a gas running fireplace, satellite TV, and he's laying on his couch in his long johns, just sitting there fishing in a hole. And I'm like, epic. Like, I could be either one of those guys.
Right.
Whichever one the pocketbook allows.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was an experience that I'm glad I got to do. And if I ever get a chance to do it again up there, I will.
Yeah.
I'll jump on it. But
that's different though than 2 inches of ice sitting there.
Here,
when you go a couple hundred miles south from there, like man, like
Central Illinois, and I know I got guys. I work in the pet trade, so I deal with people coming and buying crickets and worms, and I get guys that come in and buy crickets and worms from us to go ice fishing, and I'm like, you're nuts.
Yeah.
No. 2 inches is not enough. No. And with open water, you just don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is we've been frozen over most of the month of February. And so the little urban trout season in Missouri, nobody's caught any trout. It's been frozen, It's like
it's the longest that those trout have ever survived in that body of water.
Yeah.
They've just been given time.
But
next week you got opening, or not next Monday, but the Monday after.
Yeah, March 1st is opening. And I don't know if the trout parks, I think they shut down for a week before opening, don't they? 2 weeks before opening?
Yeah. 2 weeks. The dead week is what they call it. They do it 2 weeks at the end of season and then 2 weeks prior to opening.
Okay, and they'll be stock and everything. And man, have either one of you been to an opening day at a trout park?
I have not, but I have seen the videos.
Yeah.
And that looks like asses and elbows.
Yeah.
My friend Brian, God bless him. I love Brian to death. He loves opening day.
No kidding.
Oh, man.
A lot of people do. They live for it. Like it's family tradition for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a tradition for a lot of people. You know, I know at Montauk they have a whole tradition of them coming out with the starter pistol and everything else, and you know, and it's cool. The festivities look interesting. I don't know if I could go and fish it, and if I would, I'm using my spinning gear.
Yeah,
and I'm just there to enjoy the activities.
Yeah, it's you and 1,000 of your closest friends.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see what with COVID still hanging around, what the numbers are going to be like for that opening day. But I'm betting it's still going to be packed.
I'll guarantee you there's no social distancing.
No.
There'll be signs that will encourage it, and people will politely decline.
Yeah.
I've gone,
and I think I saw one place advertised just outside of Montauk saying that they still have a cabin available for opening day.
That's big.
And I'm like, ooh.
If there's one left, that's somebody canceled. Somebody had a yearly and canceled it.
Yeah.
I've been, I think, 3 or 4 opening days, and the best one ever was when we threw the tent up, and it was drizzling rain, and Sean had been drinking a lot of beer, and woke up that next morning and went to go pee, but the rain had turned into freezing rain, and the zipper was shut.
Oh, no.
And you've never seen somebody try to make a fire by rubbing on a zipper with their hand so hard in your life. I don't even think I made it out the door totally before I was going to the bathroom. And then we get down there to fish, and it's stupid cold and sleeting. Yep. And I'm like, why? Why am I doing this? Everybody's standing shoulder to shoulder, you know.
And they were there 2 hours before buzzer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people get down there and they stake out their spot.
Yeah.
And that's their spot.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with it, but just not my cup of tea.
Yeah. Over under on how many fist fights per trout park?
Oh, man.
I know I've been in one. Guy kept hooking my line, and then he'd reel it in and cut it off.
Oh.
And I'm like, dude, I was here first. I was sitting here. You were casting. He was using a rooster tail. Yeah. I was just sitting out there at the dummy hole with some power bait just because my buddy wanted to fish. About the third time he did that, I went across that hole. He ran.
That's so funny.
I was gonna whip his hind end because I'm like, dude.
I can almost guarantee you there's some type of argument, verbal argument, maybe going fisticuffs, and I'm like, the trout are still going to be there, guys.
Yeah.
Like, in my thing for opening day, I think the way I would plan it is go a little bit later in the day.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to want to catch their limit. They catch their limit. They go back and start, drinking it up and eating their fish.
Yep.
And here I am. I've got a stream, maybe not as secluded as I'd like to be, but, it's still available. And I think you'd have a little bit more water to fish.
Yeah.
Sure.
If you waited a little bit longer on that opening day rush.
Yeah.
The trick to, especially Montauk, of a morning, fish outside the park.
Yep.
And then if you just really want to go inside the park, go in around 10 o'clock in the morning when everybody leaves out to go back to their camp.
Yep.
But your fish are bigger outside the park, generally. There's a little bit more variety outside the park. It's harder to fish.
Sure.
The limits, you got to get one fish and it has to be over, I think, 18 inches. But if you're not going to keep the fish anyway, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
And then if you really want something for the frying pan, go back at 10 a.m., 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and catch your 2 or 3 fish that you're going to eat while you're there on the trip. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I go to opening day, I honestly think I may not even bring a fly rod. It would be specifically to spectate.
Yeah.
Like I bring the camper, I load it with beer, and I would just watch around and watch everybody.
Well,
that would be the reason.
Spectate and people watch.
Yeah.
Here's the tip: if you get into that social hole and you're fishing, crank your drag down real light so that whatever hits it sounds like a lunker. You can get people to reel in and clear out while you're dragging a 10-inch fish up and down that water.
That's fantastic. Oh man!
It's a big one.
This winter I did some catch and release fishing at Bennett, which was really cool because you can fly fish the whole stream in the park, which is great. So I fished primarily only in Zone 3, which is typically like the scented baits and like the power baits and whatnot. And it was like fishing brand new water. Like I've been to Bennett Springs, a dozen times now, but fishing it was cool because I got to go in and see different bends and different water. It was fantastic. So if you've never done that, I highly encourage you to take advantage of that because it's just cool. It's just cool to see what else is out there, even though you drive by it or walk by it, dozens of times, but you can't fish it, right? And
one of my favorite times for Montauk is right after the 2-week closing, when they open up catch and release, because that's in November.
Yeah.
So that's in November. The fish haven't been harassed for 2 weeks.
Plus it's deer season, so you've got the whole place to yourself.
Right. Deer season. There's some guys still out there fishing it, but there's hardly a soul around there. Right. Now, granted, the lodge closes at 4, and there's only one bathroom that's open, and that's on the other side of the park.
Yeah. It's
not in the campgrounds.
Right.
So, and you deal with a lot of little critters coming up too because they don't have as many people leaving food out.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, but it's fun. It's a blast. You go there you go down on a Friday. So I think you can fish Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday?
Friday through Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go down on a Friday morning, fish all day. They ring the buzzer usually around 4:30 or 5, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Go back, drink, and then wake up the next morning and do it all over.
Do it all again. That's right.
Like I said, there's hardly a soul on that stream.
Yeah. Now I did it in January, and it was. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's cold. Like you got to be prepared for it. I mean, I was catching fish, putting them back in the water, and the water felt warm. Like it warm. That felt great. Yeah. And so by the time I came back up and started putting gloves back on, I was like, I've made a mistake.
And I'll tell you what, the other thing I like to do, and that's I actually go up north from time to time, go up to Iowa and fish those streams in the winter. I have to kind of watch the weather and go, okay, what I usually look for, I mean, there's guys that are hardcore guys that will fish below 32 degrees, but when it's above 32 degrees and it looks like it's going to be a sunny day and I'm not going to deal with any snow, I'm going to go hit it.
Yeah.
And those streams, they're spring fed streams. They're warm. You want to be covered because it is cold. I mean, we're talking going northern Iowa. It gets cold up there.
Yeah.
That's when you want the insulated waders.
Yep. And I dress for it, and sometimes I dress too much. And good thing is you can just peel off.
You just peel them off. Yeah.
And keep fishing. So the water's there. It's just how diehard are you for it?
Yeah. What's it worth to you, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
See, I prefer, on the other hand, August, when I can wet wade in that 50-degree water, and I'm neutrally equal in my temperature because my bottom half is frozen and my top half is sweating.
Me and Jess, my wife, we ended up going down there for my birthday, which is in July. and it happened to be like the hottest weekend of the year.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking like heat indexes of 105 to 110. And I mean, that's what we would do. We would get, when we would feel hot at the campsite, we'd just go sit in the stream.
Yeah.
You know, you're not supposed to technically swim in the stream,
Right.
but you could sit in it and fish.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And,
Yeah.
you know, we'd cool off and fish through the whole day. And, you know, like you said, wet wade.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of wet wading that can be done.
Yeah.
I broke down and got a pair of non-insulated waders.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I went earlier this year down to Arkansas, and I thought I was going to get heat exhaustion. It was too cold to wet wade, but it was way too hot for those neoprene waders.
Yeah.
And so I got some that were not insulated. And man, I'm going to tell you what, that changes things real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I see. I usually don't do the neoprene because I feel like, okay, I can, during the winter months, I can get layers on and stay warm. But then in the summer months, if I have that neoprene on, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Other than wet wade. So
I still rock my $30 waders I got off of Amazon. I'm not even kidding. And I do that. I layer up in the fall and the winter, and in the summertime, I'll wear them, but I'll like a t-shirt and the waders, and I'm good to go, man. And now, granted, like they're holding on with a safety pin. I think I've gone three. I think I've gone 3 seasons in these things. Like I'm cheap in a lot of things. Like I won't bite the bullet. I'm not paying hundreds of dollars in waders because I only go like 6 times a year. To me, I haven't justified it yet.
Well, there's a big box sporting goods store that is mainly sporting goods and clothing that has Frog Tog waders about once a year when they transition from summer to winter, and they're only about $50 or $60.
That's what I'm talking about.
They're like 50% off.
Yeah,
So,
the Frog Togs aren't bad. I've got some. I know my father-in-law, when he went along with us, he picked up some Frog Togs, and they weren't terribly expensive, and they work fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of, and I've had some people loan them, you know, and they haven't leaked from what I know. So, I did. I will admit, I did. I went and bit the bullet and bought some nice waders from Reddington, and they have the full zip from here all the way down to the crotch.
Okay,
which is kind of nice because when nature calls, it makes it a little bit easier.
No doubt. No hesitation then with like, see, to me, when I see those, I go, man, it's just gonna leak. Like I'm just waiting for it.
There was some hesitation, especially with that long zipper.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does that even work? Never had an issue. So I mean, I've worn them a few times. So, and they're not Sims. I mean, I didn't pay a bazillion dollars for them, but you know, I was like, you know, I keep doing this. I've bought a few pairs and gone. I mean, I've worn them out. It's not that I just damage them. I just wear them out.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's just bump up and see what we could do and see if we like these.
Yeah.
I might end up kicking my own butt afterwards. We'll see. But right now I'm pretty happy with them.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I was with you, Adam. My first set, hip waders from Walmart.
There you go. Yeah.
Hip waders from Walmart, and I filled those things up with water so many times. I'm like, the fish are right there, and I just need to get
just one more step.
When you're walking along and you look and you can see the only thing keeping those dry is the water retention holding it.
Yep. You're like, I can inch just a little bit closer. Cold.
You know, waders and wader safety is a big thing. You know, Montauk, I'm not too worried about it because none of the water's that deep, especially in the park. Outside the park, there's only a couple of holes that are maybe 5-6 foot deep, maybe a couple that are deeper than that, but not a lot that I've ever had to worry about.
Yeah.
Now, my friends who are shorter, I've got one friend who's really short, and he walked over to where I was, and I thought he was going to fill up.
My buddy, my buddy that goes down and fishes with me quite a bit down at Montauk, he's 6'3", 6'4". He's tall guy. I'm 5'8" on a good day.
Yeah. Me too, brother. Me too.
and you know, when we fish there, so the stretch behind the lodge, there's really dead water on that stretch.
Yeah.
And that part, in the last couple of years, it's gotten deep. The whole backside of that has gotten deep. And we're just waiting along, and he's doing fine. And I'm like, dude, I got to back up. And he just keeps moving. I'm like, dude, he didn't even hear me. I'm like, hey, look back. And he finally turns around, and I'm like, I got to head back. And I've got water, you know, right at the edge.
Yeah.
My pockets are full of water. I'm like, oh, damn, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, you look kind of silly, but wearing a life jacket's not a bad idea when you're wading, especially when you're wading new water or water that has changed drastically because of a flood since you were there last, at least until you get figured out. And especially fast water or below a dam.
I'll tell you what, that behind the dam there at Montauk again, I fell there. I fell where that water comes in as a dummy hole.
Yeah.
And that's fast water. I just lost my footing. And, you know, it's maybe a good foot deep, maybe 2 feet. And I really felt like I couldn't get my hand down to lift myself up.
Yeah.
Like it was a little panicky. I ended up breaking my rod that day. And I mean, it wasn't a good feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm glad nobody videotaped it.
Well, I mean, you go down to some of these rivers down in southwest Missouri, what would that be, northwest Arkansas, where they're generating power.
Oh.
And you don't hear the horn blow because you're 3 miles down, and you look over, and all of a sudden you went from knee deep to waist deep. You know, that's a scary.
Happening fast.
Yeah, and even if you're wearing waders, you think you're all right. You know, in those conditions, having a life jacket is really a good idea. And I think we would be remiss talking about waders if we didn't say that, because you fill up your waders, and there's some people say, oh, you fill up your waders, you're neutrally buoyant. Yeah, you are, until you try to get back into your kayak, and then once you come out of the water, that water weighs more on you.
And that water's still in there.
Yeah.
So that brings up a good point. So Sean, I got my first kayak. I haven't even gotten in the water yet, and so a lot of this is going to be brand new to me. But so when you're fishing streams and whatnot, are you wearing waders when you're in your kayak in the event that you got to hop out? I guess it probably depends on time of year.
Yeah, there are times that I will when it's really cold. Now I fall out of my kayak a lot.
Imagine that.
Admittedly, I tip.
So it depends on how big a cooler I'm taking with me, whether or not I flip. But yeah, sometimes I will, like when we go chasing the striped bass or the hybrid bass out of the lake, like up to St. Francis. Yeah, it's cold. It's the beginning of middle of April. You know, the water's cold. Generally, if I can do the 120 rule, which is if the water temperature and the air temperature matches 120, I don't worry about it. But anything under 120, I will generally wear my waders and a life jacket, both.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm goofing around on the Castor River out here where I grew up, and there's very few, above waist deep holes. In the summertime, I'm wearing shorts and sandals and, maybe a shirt, and
purposely tipping the kayak.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I wear kayak flipping. It's like motorcycle. You dress for the slide, not for the ride.
Yeah.
I dress for the flip, not for the fish. But speaking of some show news, I didn't get to tell you, Adam, that Yak Rod contacted us, and they're wanting to come on the show in April. Awesome. And this is a new rod. It's a spinning rod from what I saw. I think they've got a bait caster too. They've got a bunch of them. But this rod has a tether that goes on the bottom of it, so that when you put it in your rod holder on your kayak, it's tethered. So you're not going to dump a $300 rod and reel setup into the drink and not get it.
Yeah.
So that's something that you really need to think about, both of you, with your kayaks. I modified a couple of paddle leashes so I can leash down my fly rod. Because I keep a 500-pound magnet. Well, the magnet, it'll stick 500 pound strength magnet.
Holy cow, this kayak is going under. This guy is going down.
Yeah. But
you'll pull up a Buick kind of thing, right?
Yeah. But I've had friends that have lost rods enough, and this has saved a couple of rods.
Okay.
But I keep one of those in the back of my kayak in case anything goes over. Now it's the only thing that's gonna hit is your reel or your eyelets, but that's still, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And then if you don't want to lose it, you better tie it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna flip your kayak. I don't care what kayak you're in, you're gonna flip it at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thankfully, I haven't been there, knock on wood, but I'm probably going to be there eventually. But I kind of echo that. I tying stuff down and wearing a flotation device on the lakes that I'm on. It's huge because we're talking about strip mine lakes, and we're talking about 40-foot deep lakes, and they're cold.
Yep.
Yeah, they're cold all the time. The top part of the water is going to be 80 degrees, dead of summer, but a little bit further down, it gets cold.
Yeah. And do they have trout in those? There's one over in Southern Illinois that has trout in it. So, like in the summertime, if you drop below a certain column in the water, you can get trout.
There's not from what I understand on the lakes here. There is one that they do a stocking program on. We're talking maybe an hour from where I'm at. Yeah. I just found out this other place too. It still falls into the pellet pigs, but it's kind of piqued my interest, and they haven't opened up for public yet. But it's called giving them a unsolicited plug. But it's called San Cody Resorts, and apparently they've made their own trout stream here in Peoria. So it's man-made. It's going to be filled with pellet pigs. And I've reached out to them. They're still in the process of getting everything squared away.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious on how that's going to work, because they also have a couple of big lakes. One of them they talk about having, they call it their Canada Lake, which has walleye, muskie, pike.
That'll probably be a pay-to-fish place, I'm sure, right?
I'm betting the way it sounds like it's going to be a pay-to-fish. I just don't know. I've reached out to them. They're kind of really keeping their cards to their chest a bit, but they've plugged it a couple of times on a radio station here locally. And I'm just like, man, if I can get trout 20 minutes away from my house, it's going to be kind of, when I feel the need, I know they're still pellet pigs, but when I feel like I need to, go out there and, do the river runs through it thing.
Yeah.
I've got it right there.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'm going to be pretty amped about that.
That's closer than anything we've got here to us, and they're all pellet pigs too. They're all coming out of the hatchery.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I think people that balk at hatchery fish, I don't think hatchery fish for me is kind of like practicing. You know what I mean? Like, I could go there and I can catch fish, and I know I'm going to catch fish, and I still have fun catching fish, and there's nothing wrong with catching hatchery fish. But I can also dial in, I'm trying a new cast, or I'm trying a new rod before I go up to Wisconsin and fish in those streams.
Right.
Sure.
It kind of builds a confidence that, okay, yeah, maybe I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about hatchery.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think too, and I don't want to speak for other people, obviously, but it's probably easy to take for granted if you have, native trout streams in your backyard, or if you're in Colorado where you have easy access to trout streams, or Montana or Idaho, wherever. I don't have access to that. If I did, that's where I would go. But where I can go trout fishing is within a 3-hour drive. That's where I'm going to go. I talk about, I'm like, I can go east 3 hours and I can be trout fishing, or I can go west 10 hours and I'm trout fishing. Yeah. Which one do you think I could do in the weekend?
Yeah.
Well, remember when we had Andrew on the other day? He guides up in Alaska, and he's talking about Cotter being such a hot spot.
Yeah.
Guess what, man? There aren't any natural trout in that. They've all been put there. Now they may have been put in at 8 inches, and now they're up to 36.
Right.
Now,
right.
at what point do they quit being, stocker trout?
Yeah.
How long do they have to live in that water before they're no longer quote unquote stocker trout? I mean, is 2 seasons enough that they're harder to catch?
Well, then you got to talk about like next generation. Like, are they spawning now in the wild?
I
Like,
think
they may have originated as stocker trout, but now where are we in terms of generational trout?
And that's the thing. You'll hear one group of people say no, they can't, and you'll hear another group of people say yeah, they can. And I'm not a fish biologist.
I think you guys are on kind of just that line of like, it's possible, but not high numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys still have some good streams down there with a lot of aeration, clean streams, and cooler streams where they could still kind of go through that spawning process, but yet they don't spawn enough, or not enough of them spawn to keep a population.
Yeah.
I know the stream that I'm so glad it sounds like I'm going back there in June, is the Kinnickinnick River up in Wisconsin. And you're talking about a stream that was stocked in the 70s was the last time it was stocked.
Okay.
And they did a lot of cleanup on it. And it was one of those streams where it's like, all we have to do is try to keep the cows out of it, clean it up a little bit, and boom, now they have a population of brown trout.
Yeah. And see, that's neat, and I think that
I would call since they were last time they were stocked in the 70s, and their numbers are huge in that stream, I would call that a natural reproducing stream now.
I would too. Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But it's one of those where it just really becomes, around here again, it's hard to decide and hard to figure out without actually talking to. And you might talk to one conservation agent and they'll tell you one thing, and you might talk to the biologist and he'll tell you something else. But hey,
the one thing I have to give. The one thing I have to give Missouri, though, is they have a fantastic trout program.
Mm-hmm.
They work really hard on it.
Yeah, they really do work very hard on that. Was it MDMC or whatever?
Yes.
Run DMC.
Run. Whatever it is, I think they have a great program. I've always been happy with the fish that they produce. And there's always, unfortunately, I heard some really bad things about the previous or last year because, nobody was watching them, and they just pretty much said, we're shutting down and you fish it out. Once it's out, we're not stocking any more fish. Yeah. But even after major floods, I've gone down there maybe a month afterwards, and the fish are right there again.
Yeah.
And they're ready to eat.
And there were a couple of years that Montauk was incredible because the big flood came through.
Yes.
And all the stockers and all the breeding fish and everything went straight into the river.
Right, straight into the river. And I and from what I understand, there are probably still some lingering too.
Yeah, there's some big ones.
Imagine, yeah.
And I've also seen some reports of, and I've never really fished it, and I tried to fish it at the end of this year, was the lake. At the start of the park, I'm like, why have I never fished this? And I started seeing a guy posting up, hey, he's catching some big trout out of that thing.
There are. You can walk around it and look, and you can see some big ones.
Yeah. So, and you got to figure flooding probably pushed a lot of them in there.
Yeah.
And their brood stock sits there in those raceways down towards the end. Yeah. They're not in that major raceway.
Right.
And so, those big ones got flooded out, and either in that little catch and release area or in the lake behind it.
Oh, that catch and release area down there is amazing. My friend was over at the social hole, and I was just killing them on renegades. I bought some topwater, dry flies, and I was having a heck of a time. You can't, you got to roll cast everything, and it's only 4 foot wide, but.
Oh, I love when I first get down there. That's like the first place I hit just to get my confidence. And when I get down there, I usually wake up. My day usually starts at 3:00 in the morning, and I drive straight on down, and I get there right when buzzer hits, or maybe a little after buzzer, and I start fishing. But by the time that drive, I don't want to put waders on. So that's when I start fishing those banks, and just kind of get my bearings back and just say, yep, I'm here. I'm going to fish, and that's what I'm going to do. And I love that little catch and release area.
Man, we don't have anything like that at Bennett. You're either in the stream or you're not. That sounds awesome. I got to check that out.
Yeah, so Montauk's got a little catch and release area between a raceway and the stream. And it's literally, Sean, what is it? Maybe 50 yards?
Maybe 4 foot wide at its widest.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's very narrow.
And they're all lunkers. Clear,
and they're lunkers, and there's little fish in there too. Yeah. So you got to get past them. But I've caught it. My biggest out of there was, I think, 20 or 22 inches.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And It's got the hook. It had the hook jaw and everything. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's neat, and you can collect a lot of lures and flies if you're tall, or if you take a hooked stick with you, because there's trees right behind you.
Bobber season is in full bloom there.
Yes. Beach balls. That's what I call them. Beach balls.
Right.
Get all the beach balls you want.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've got a couple of them up there too. So,
yeah.
I mean, I do what I can to pull out of the trees, but we're going to break one off here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot up there. I know
That's
exactly
too
what
funny.
you're talking about, Sean.
That's good.
Yeah, and I'm sure everybody that listens to the show has their favorite place that they like to fish. Hey, when we drop this, the link for on Facebook to the YouTube video of this, or in the comments, email us if you want to, or comment on it, or comment on the Facebook page if you listen to just the audio podcast. Tell us where you like to trout fish and what you like to use, and talk about some of your favorite flies. I know I watched a video the other night, and I was thinking about this with Montauk in mind. It was the Mega Prince. Have you guys seen this?
No.
It's like a size 8 hook stonefly.
Oh, so it's perfect for your size.
Dude!
And
Wait
a minute, you got to size it up even bigger, though. It's still kind of small.
Yeah, I know. But I've got all the materials. I'm like, and so I got online because you always hear about stoneflies out west.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of stoneflies in Missouri.
Yep.
So, we're gonna try a couple of those for down in the wild, quote unquote, wild part outside the park.
Cool.
And I've been told, so there's a pattern called the Bitch Creek, and I've heard that works very well outside of the park.
I'll have to look that up, or maybe you can make a video.
Yeah, it does take a little bit if you actually do. There's some weaving to it, but it's not hard weaving. It's not hard weaving at all, but it's an interesting pattern. I've had some success with it, but I will admit I haven't fully really said I'm going to fish with this.
Right.
But I've heard a lot of people say that it's a phenomenal fly to have down there.
Now you go to Arkansas, and you leave those nymphs at home. You throw what look like musky flies.
Yes.
Because those 30-inch browns down at Cotter are no joke.
Man. Gosh, that sounds amazing. I have yet to catch a brown trout.
I caught my personal best last year at Cotter, and then the next cast I caught my non-personal best, and then the third cast I caught my new personal best. Basically, like 3 casts, 3 browns, bang, bang,
wow.
bang.
Nice.
Wow.
It was nice. It was really nice.
The Kinnickinnick River that I was talking about, they don't have big browns, but that's pretty much all that's in there is brown. You can get some brooks, and so I kind of got a little I got spoiled a little bit being able to fish that, and the numbers that they have in that stream is amazing. But Iowa has some great browns too.
In the driftless region?
In the driftless region. The stream that I fish in Iowa is kind of like on the edge of being called driftless or not. Some people argue about that, but I've got some decent sized browns. Not a 30-inch like Sean, but
well, I didn't nail the 30-inch, but I will take quantity over size. I'm just saying that.
Like I would love to go down to Arkansas and check that out, because
Me too.
The idea of throwing big flies just piques my interest, for one. I like throwing big musky flies. I don't catch a lot of musky, but I like throwing them. I don't know why. That's part of the insanity of it. But that does pique my interest in getting down there. That's on my bucket list. So it's definitely a place.
Yeah, and it's maybe, if I'm doing my math right, it might be 2 hours further than Montauk.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've looked at it on the map. It's more of trying to figure out the lay of the land. And from what I gather, you have to really do that in a drift boat or a boat of some sort.
There are a few places you can fish, but you really need to be in a drift boat. There are a few places you can get to. You can kayak it depending on the flow.
Yeah.
Now, if you miss your pullout spot, the next one is 8 miles away, but it'll only take you 30 minutes to get there.
Wow.
So
got some rapid action, I bet.
When they're generating, you go fast. So you want to stay close to the bank so you can bank up and then fly fish and then get your kayak back moving again. But there are a lot of guides down there. There's another new guide down there. Polly Ann was asked him to be on, and he's like, I'd love to, but I can't. I'm too busy. Ben Woodard is a guide down there. I've known Ben for I don't know how many years. And every time I say, hey, it's winter, can you come on? He's like, dude, I'm busier this winter than I've ever been. He just quit his job to be a full-time guide.
I'm betting they're seeing a lot of business right now.
Yeah, and Cotter's, Andrew was telling us, Cotter's one of those places where they're hurting for guides.
Yeah.
Because people...
Well, I mean, if you got people flying in all over the place to get that glory shot, that 30-inch brown, you hear about it, and everybody talks about it, and they got Streamer Love Fest down there and everything else. So I mean, it's a big to do down there.
And you can also go up to the tailwaters right by the dam where it's wadeable.
Okay.
You can go to Norfolk and you can go up to the top. I don't remember which lake the white comes out of. It comes out of Table Rock and goes into another lake, maybe Beaver, I'm not sure, and then it comes out. And you can do some wade fishing up there again. That's watching the water release, so
What's the story on Taneycomo? Because I've never fished Taneycomo.
I have not fished Taneycomo, but it's on my list quickly because it's fairly close.
Yeah.
Gary, who we've had on a long time ago, Sean, he fishes Taneycomo a couple times a year, and he's always pulling out just some awesome trout.
There's the lake that you can trout fish in, and then there's below the dam, which is right there in the middle of Branson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And if they're not generating, a lot of it, they got these big staircases going down, right? And you can fish from the bottom of the staircases, but if they're not generating a bunch of water, you can wade out even further. Yeah. But they generate quite a bit.
That's where the Missouri state record came from. 2 years ago?
Yeah, I'd say 2 summers ago. Yeah.
And he was using a fly rod. It was the fly fish record. He was using a fly rod with an egg hook and a power bait worm.
Yep.
Which, I'm not a purist, but wacky rigging a power bait worm is a little iffy.
It's stretching it. Yeah. It's stretching it. It's stretching it a bit.
I bet you he looked into it, saw what he had, and he thought, damn, I should have just went with Chanel.
I bet he got it up to the bank and changed flies. That's what I would have done. I'd have taken a different fly out and been like, oh, I caught this one on size 14.
I caught this one on a dry fly Adams.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, you should have seen it.
I saw him rising, and I did the shadow cast.
He broke the water. It was in slow motion. Oh yeah. I would have never told him what I caught it on if I'd caught it on that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not above. We were at Spring River one day, and I was having a rough day, and I found a package of those from going to Montauk 4 years before, and I tied one up, and finally I was out fishing Grant, and he comes over and he goes, me borrow one of those flies you're using. And I'm like, nope. And just keep on going.
I only got the one.
Yeah.
I got the one, and it's getting pretty chewed up.
Yeah.
So I
You don't want this.
Bullwhip that bad boy off real quick so he couldn't see it. But
I've got no shame. I use squirmy worms all the time. I mean, it's one of those things that's like squirmy worms and mop flies, man. If it works, it works.
Yeah.
So, and if they're legal, that's the other thing is you check your rules and regulations. I know Missouri was kind of weird about having rubber legs on flies, and that was questionable, and that was like a gray area. But check your rules and regulations. That's the big thing a lot of people don't realize is that some of these places don't allow you to use lead. They don't allow you to use rubber, even if it's a fly.
Yeah, you
can't have rubber legs on it.
Right.
Or even down there in Missouri, you can't have felt bottom waders.
Arkansas has a zebra mussel, I think it's called. Or no, it's a slime. It's a slime that they have. Okay. And so they were afraid because of the cross-contamination between Missouri and Arkansas fishermen. So you can still wear felt in Arkansas, which I would highly recommend, but you can't wear it in Missouri.
No, you can't. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, so, I was fishing down in Oklahoma last summer, and I just had rubber boot waders, and the guide that I was with, he had felt bottoms, and I think he thought I was absolutely nuts that I didn't have them, and he's right because I definitely took a spill. We were going over some big boulders, and they were slippery, and but because I'm in Kansas, I'm 20 minutes from the Missouri border. I fish in Missouri. I don't have felt bottom waders because to me, I'm like, you can't have them. So why would I even entertain it?
Yeah, I bought a pair of felt bottom boots, and the booty waders. So the boot was external, separate. Yeah. I think it was like 3 years later they outlawed the felt. Like, damn it, I had to go buy another $120 pair of boots.
Yeah. I kind of fell into the same deal. I was down there going on a fishing trip. I was like, I'm going to upgrade my waders. This is the first time I actually got like the neoprene booty foot waders and then an actual boot to put over it.
Yeah.
And they had some Orvis waders that had felt bottoms, and they were on reduced to clear. Never thought why. And I went on that trip. I think I had one more trip with them, and then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, felt bottoms, you can't have them in Missouri. I'm like, so I have this barely used pair of Orvis waders or wading boots. Yeah. And I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah. I saw a guy who had a pair on Facebook Marketplace. They were marked down to like $30. Yeah. And I'm like, I should just buy them, but I won't ever use them. And then I passed on it, but I probably should have bought them because then I could use them in Oklahoma should I ever go back.
And you can use them in Arkansas. You can use them,
I went ahead and did the whole corkers thing where you can change them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
I can put the rubber with studs, and then if I go somewhere where they allow felt, I pull the felt ones out and throw them on.
That's nice.
And that's kind of a nice thing if you guys are ever looking at boots. They're pretty nice. They're, again, you're going to be paying a little bit for, I think, the name and also the option of changing out. But they're nice boots if you fish in multiple regions.
Yeah.
When you're talking to me and you and everybody else in Missouri, a lot of times they're just in Missouri. Yeah. So it wouldn't make any sense. But
if it wasn't for the fact it's an hour closer to Spring River than it is to Montauk.
Yeah.
I would be like I always had been. And then I find out about Spring River and I finally decide to go down and check it out. And I'm like, wow, this is neat. I mean, you can use bait, but there's nobody down there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think crowded, I've seen like 5 people. Wow. And then if you get down on the water, the girls go woo and they throw you free beer. I mean,
see, now you're just ruining it. Now everybody's going to show up.
I'm telling you, man, it is awesome.
Ben, you are grossly overestimating the span of this podcast.
we we try to reach tens of people, right?
Yes. That one guy from South Africa is getting his passport right now, trying to find a spring river in Arkansas.
He's like, I heard about this on the Kayak Flyer. We're gonna go check it out.
Yeah. Tell us where you're from. Send us an email or make a comment on our Instagram or something. Tell us where you're from. We'll draw one of you for a free Cutthroat Leader. How's that?
There you go.
Yeah, draw
see where we reach. Right?
Yeah, we'll see where we reach to. How far away are you? And they'll probably be like, I'm just down the street.
Like, St. Louis.
Poor Ludwig, who's going to be on the show, he'll probably go ahead and be like, well, I was listening to the show and I want my free leader, but after hearing this train wreck, that happened to Drew Gregory. I was in talks with Drew Gregory, and he emailed me and he said, no thanks. I listened to that last show called The Show of Awesomeness with Ben Tutt on. He goes, I don't want anything to do with that show. That was rough. I'm like, what do I name this? It's like, it's just, there's no topic.
No, we just
I love it.
Keep rolling.
Yeah.
That's
keep
great.
rolling.
So
we're just three heads talking to each other. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if we can get Drew Gregory on, that'd be kind of neat. And then we do have something really cool that you might be interested to coming up, and we may have some folks from a major blog on fly fishing come on to promo their new podcast. Ooh. So that's all I can say about that. But
things
squirrely secret stuff, huh?
Yeah, super secret stuff. Stay tuned to find out more.
Gotta listen to the show to learn about it.
Yeah. You can't win if you don't listen.
That's right.
Oh. Well, boys, I tell you what, this has been a blast. It seems like every time we get on here, we say, yeah, we're going to do an hour, and then it's an hour 10, hour 15, hour 20.
Right. Yeah. It's a good time talking with you guys.
Eventually, we are going to actually meet face to face and fish together.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of this, this BS video chat thing that we do.
We'll probably meet each other and dislike one another so bad.
That's supposedly a podcast. This is supposedly a podcast.
Yeah. Tell me about it. We've done this so much. We really have. And now that we're not live streaming and we can do this any night we want to, because this was last Monday's recording. So that means I've got to turn and edit all this and drop it on Tuesday with another podcast tomorrow for next week.
Right.
Not your fault, Ben. It's okay. But now that we can do this at any time, Ben can be on just when he just tells us when he's off. And he just comes back on.
Every single one of your vacation days needs to be a Kayak Flyer podcast day.
Yes.
Oh, that could be rough.
What are you talking about?
That could be rough. I could run out of fishing stories pretty fast. I
don't think so.
They're gonna be like, oh, not that ugly mug again.
You can bring your wife on to talk about bugs.
For sure
about that. She's definitely, she definitely works a lot and kind of works weird hours because she works from home. Mm-hmm. She can pretty much work whatever schedule she wants, but when she gets into it, it's like she's there. But yeah, she definitely has a wealth of knowledge of bugs, and if anybody has any questions about bugs, feel free to reach out. If you get a picture of something, if you're curious what it is, send me a message with it, and if it's a good clear shot, she might be able to identify it for you.
Now, are you still taking water samples that are mailed to you so that you find out what kind of bugs are in the water, or what kind of water is best for what bug?
We don't do water samples because Sean, I think you sent me the wrong sample one.
It was mostly water.
I don't know. She is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to insects, and it's not her specialty. Aquatic insects isn't her specialty, but she knows. She lives and breathes insects. So when she finds something or somebody sends something to her, she loves kind of researching it and finding what it is, what the life is, like the processes of life for those insects. And, you know, she's, like I said, she's a walking encyclopedia.
Well, I guess she's got to be excited with the 17-year caddis coming up this
Oh,
summer.
yeah. Yeah. Funny story, since that's on the topic here. We first started dating. We went out to her farm. Her folks have a farm here in Central Illinois. And literally, we're riding along on a four-wheeler, and I'm driving. And I'm just kind of like not hammering it, but I'm going. And all I feel is this slam on my back, and I hear, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I slam on the brakes, and she jumps off that four-wheeler, even rolling still. And she runs over, and she grabs one of those caddises, or not caddis, but cicadas.
Yeah.
And she's like, check this thing out. They only come out every 17 years. And it was just a neat thing to be a part of and see it. And that's kind of fun that I get that kind of information from her too.
Yeah.
I can go, what did I tie? And she
Right.
goes, oh, that's a caddis. In fact, I started tying bumblebees. Kind of a neat little pattern. And I pull out and turn on the light. And she goes, oh my God, that's so cute. I'm like, damn it, it's not supposed to be cute. It's supposed to be a bee. It's going to catch fish.
It's supposed to strike fear into the hearts of children everywhere.
Yes.
Well, that's what you get for marrying an etymologist, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to, I guess this summer you're going to have to do a stupid simple fly challenge on those cicadas.
Yeah, or sooner. Like, I mean, it's been the hot topic, even on Stupid Simple. You watch some of these groups right now, and they are really hammering that cicada hatch. It's going to be a big deal for most of the, pretty much east of the Mississippi, the way it looks like on the map.
Yeah, I don't understand how right at the middle of the Mississippi River they just stop, because we're not supposed to get any here in Missouri.
Really?
Yeah, I don't, because that's the line.
Huh.
And I guess, is there like a barrier that they can't fly across the river?
I don't know. That would be a question for the entomologist.
Yeah, you'll have to ask her.
Now I'm going to have to dig into that. I'll tell you the cool thing is she's, she has connections throughout colleges and everything, and the mayfly hatches, where they pick them up on Doppler radar.
Oh, yeah.
Those are insane. And she'll get pictures from other colleagues and everything like that, where they've had to close down bridges because people are sliding.
Oh.
Yeah, because you're running over all.
Yeah.
Golly.
I mean, it's just like running over oil.
Yeah. Just.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
The last thing that goes through a bug's head when it hits your windshield.
The butt.
The butt. Oh. But yeah.
Well, we're going to end on that high note.
Yeah, it's going to be a great summer, guys. I know Adam is always great to have you co-hosting the show, Adam. Luttrell's Fly Shop. You guys head over and check out Adam. Anything you want to finish up with, Adam?
I don't think so. It's always great talking to you guys. Ben, love what you do for Stupid Simple. And Sean, it's always a pleasure, buddy.
He tells so many lies. Ben, this has been great, buddy. So glad you could work it in on your last day of vacation. Glad you were sober.
We were axe throwing last night, so that was a lot of fun.
Well, that's when you should be drinking.
Yeah. Every axe throwing place I know sells beer.
Right.
Yep. They did.
Let's give people high amounts of alcohol and very sharp axes.
Yeah.
Nothing
can go wrong.
I think I'm going to make one for married couples, and I'm going to call it Axe Your Ex. Try to work the legalities out on that one. I don't know.
Yeah, good luck, buddy.
Save on divorce court. Take your spouse axe throwing. See guys walking around all cut up from their women throwing them at them. Oh, Lord. Okay, that's enough. We're going to be going.
It's definitely fallen off the rails
Yeah.
now.
Be sure to like and share the video wherever you can. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Facebook channel. Share the podcast, comment on the podcast. Comment on Instagram, like the Instagram Kayak Flyer, and message us any way you want to through any of those social medias. We'll keep them all open for your chance to win a Cutthroat Furrowed Leader from cutthroatfurrowedleaders.com. Save 15% with promo code Kayak. While you're at it, use that promo code at Nick Dooley's fly fishing, dooley'sflyfishing.com to save 15%. You can do that. I'll tell you what, you tie you a fly, you use a Cutthroat Leader, you get you a Bajuco Flats fly rod to cast it on, net it in a Stonefly net, and haul your trailer on that Tennessee trailer. Bang, all the sponsors are included, and we are done. Later, boys. That was fun.